pleased to invite three members of the AMEA network to speak, starting with Mark Blackett, who is the Global Network Director for the Agribusiness Market Ecosystems Alliance, which is the full name for AMEA. And he has nearly 20 years experience in Africa and Asia supporting inclusive agribusiness and BDS initiatives. So I will hand over in a second to Mark to begin the webinar while we still try and get hold of Harrison. Just before I do, I just wanted to point out one feature of the dashboard that you're looking at. In the right-hand corner, there's a chat box. As you can see, there's a couple of messages from, or one message from Isabel, who manages the website. If you want to place questions to any of the speakers at any point during the webinar, this is a place to do it. Just type your message into the chat box in the bottom right-hand corner, and we will come to those questions after the formal presentation has finished. We expect the formal presentations by Mark, Harrison, and Sabrina to last about 30 minutes, and then there'll be a chance for these questions that you've placed in the chat box to be addressed by the speakers. So get typing whenever you feel like it in response to anything they have to say. Okay, I think that's probably enough from me. Mark, can you say something so we can just check that we can hear you clearly?
Can you hear me now?
I can indeed. Thank you very much. Mark, welcome to the Beam Exchange Grab the Mic webinar, and please take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be given an opportunity to speak to the Beam Exchange Network. So I'm going to sort of tell you about, give you an overview of the Agribusiness Market Ecosystems Alliance, which is AMEA. And we're a not-for-profit foundation registered in the Netherlands, and we're now 3 years old. But then again, we did start with 7 founding members who had 40 years plus experience in professionalising farmer organisations. Next slide. Yeah, and next slide. Yeah, so the founding members are on the top, plus Scope Insight on the left-hand side. We, as you can see now, we're 26 members. The most recent one, which hasn't been added into that yet, is Mercy Corps DRC. And we reach millions of farmers if you look at those agencies, and increasingly our members are from the global south. So you'll see new members like NetBiz Impact there and Kalimo Trust, which are based in East Africa, and that's where we see the growth coming from. Next slide. So AMEA aims to transform the way in which farmers and their organizations are supported. In most countries, this system does not exist. Instead, hundreds of projects deliver services in a fragmented, expensive, and unsustainable way. These projects often claim to be innovative, but we would argue that they spend time and money developing approaches and curricula that often just reinvents the wheel. AMEA is basically here to say, let's build on the approaches we already have, and let's do that together. And together means all of those wheels. So that means working with people from the Beam Exchange as well, as with your market system development strategies, projects as well. The farmer organization, as you see, is at the center there, and that's where we see it. It's often at that nexus where banking officers, cooperative development officers, NGO project officers, traders, input dealers, and government officers come, and they offer them services, let's call them services, to help them develop. These services are often subsidized and supply driven. The services are based on rigid results frameworks quite often, and that framework allows little adaptability. The offer is from the service provider, and the farmer organization has very little ability to influence that offer. Also, these services often don't build on previous work, and as a result, farmer organizations are forced to be assessed again and again and again, and are asked to implement multiple social and business plans rather than just one plan. So the message we're sending to farmer organizations as a development community is that you must play our game to get our money. AMEA instead wants to send the message that we as a development community are serious about supporting your development as a professional farmer organization, and we will organize ourselves and make this system more effective, even if it takes us 10 years or more. So that's it in terms of what AMEA wants to do. We see a long-term investment and a growing alliance to sort of influence the way that system develops. Next slide. So there's many networks out there. I mean, there's a lot of networks who deal with very diverse ranges of issues. What we're trying to do is work in a particular niche and be the best in that niche. And that's about professionalizing farmer organizations. So the system that we envisage is called the AMEA Framework. And this has been built up by global working groups within AMEA over the last 3 years. So the far left-hand side, you see the box around global guidelines. And over the last year, over a 12-month period, there was consultations in 51 countries with 221 respondents to that process, regional workshops, which you'll hear more about later. And the end product were these global guidelines on what it means to be a professional farmer organization. Sabrina will take you through the details of that. But basically, it's establishing a common language so we can talk to each other as stakeholders in this process of establishing a system. The box in the middle, 2, 3, and 4, is about, as I said before, sort of building on what we have. So we have generated, again, in the last 2 years, I'd say, a peer-reviewed toolkit, which contains assessment, training, and coaching tools that are considered to be the best available that we know in the AMEA framework. Obviously, there are things that we don't know, and this is why we're continually improving this toolkit. The toolkit has assessment tools and training and coaching tools. And then as you move to number 4, the more that we use more standard tools across multiple projects and multiple countries, the more we generate sort of trainer and coaches databases where we have easier access to high quality trainer and coaches, which we know is a significant constraint to what we do in the field right now. So if we get those, 1, 2, 3, 4 right, then we believe that it will accelerate the development of professional farm organizations, and they will have improved access to markets and generate better returns for their members. We also have, an ambition to establish common indicators, and we've already agreed within the AMEA members about common indicators. But really, there's a much wider conversation there with people like USAID, who have their standard indicator set, and also DCED, which also have indicator sets. And so there's a lot of work still to be done in that particular box. Number 6 is about continuous feedback loops and ensuring that we continually improve on this AMEA framework as we move through the process. And that's about really diving deep into sort of case studies and generating data that shows the effectiveness of this approach. Next one. The AMEA framework means nothing really, does it? Unless we can sort of prove it on the ground. So in the last year, we've worked to establish sort of 4 local networks: Ivory Coast, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Some of this has been going on for even before that time, because Ivory Coast, the discussions around that started in 2017. So we're basically taking the framework to the local networks, establishing the local networks, and then sort of saying, well, how do you want to use it? And we're allowing them, obviously, to sort of adapt the AMEA framework based on the context, based on the opportunities that are there, recognizing the challenges that are there, the constraints. Harrison will explain much more about that in terms of an example in terms of the Uganda network. And you'll see the links to the global guideline process when Sabrina presents after Harrison. So I'll now hand over to Harrison to explain about how it works in Uganda.
And hello, everyone. Hope I'm audible enough. Hello, everyone. As earlier mentioned, AMEA works with through working groups and local networks. And the local network in Uganda is among the first ones that were established. So far, we have held 5 meetings discussing various topics of interest to members. We currently have 12 members, 11 of whom are international global partners supporting farm organizations in various parts of the world. We began the network. Through from May 2018 when we discussed the international workshop agreement, when we had the consultation workshop in Uganda, and so far we've held the various meetings discussing different topics to try to address common challenges that partners face in Uganda while they are trying to support farm organizations. And the common, as Mark explained earlier on, the purpose of AMEA is to see how partners who work to support farm organizations can be able to work more closely together, share share tools, share approaches, and avoid duplication of resources. And so the common challenges that they face include, the approaches that are so different, are varying from one partner to another, and also which creates some kind of competition, which also leads to wastage of resources. And then also another challenge that our partners face in Uganda is the poor quality business development services, or we don't have a common way to assess the quality of our business development service providers and accountability kind of systems. So this is a problem that this is a problem that is faced by all partners of AMEA, and to which they feel that they should get a solution. The third challenge that the partners in Uganda face is to do with their inclusive agribusiness and lead farm models, which are again are varying. They all employ models which are so varying, and so this affects the capacity of farm organizations that they support. And in doing this, the purpose of all the partners is to ensure that farm organizations which they support are able to have a smooth relationship with other ecosystem actors like financiers. But because of the challenges that farm organizations face and the inability of the partners to employ similar challenges, those other actors are not able to fully work with the farm organizations. For example, the financiers, they still find the farm organizations challenging to work with, and so we still face the same challenges as before. And then we all try to look at how to support the farm organizations access services and move from one level to another, but the pathway of change to follow is so diverse up to now, and so it's a very big challenge to the farm organization. So the partners still felt that if we could be able to agree on a pathway to professionalism, then we can be able to support these farm organizations similarly, and then be able to support them pretty well. So this is one of the challenges that farm that partners feel that they can be able to address in this local network that we have. Then we also have what we worked on. We agreed that if we could be able to come together, adopt similar approaches, adopt similar tools, and agree on a pathway follow as we support the farm organizations to professionalism, then we need to have some commonalities that we have to work towards. And so this is where we began with the stakeholder meeting I mentioned earlier on in May of 2018 to contact all stakeholders so that we can be able to agree on what definition we can have for a professional farm organization, and the ideas that we generated here in Uganda from the local network partners were also included during the global workshop meeting in Delft. And then after that, what the partners are now trying to look at is to see how we can be able to domesticate those guidelines so that in Uganda, as partners who work with the farm organizations, we know what we are looking at when we talk of a professional farm organization. Then another area of collaboration that we identified is probably if we can be able to come together, mobilize resources, and we can mobilize resources, much more resources, and commitment from all other partners to support farm organizations if we use the AMEA platform. And so this is another area that we are really looking at taking forward as partners in Uganda. As I said earlier on, all partners that work with farm organizations, you'll agree with me that they use different tools, right from assessment tools. We all want to for example, look at a farm organization and understand its level of development, the capacity areas to be able to look at. But we use different tools altogether. And you find, for example, 3 partners working with the farm organization. By virtue of using different tools, they are unable to have a common ground on what areas they can go to develop, to concentrate on if they're to develop the farm organization. And this is one area where we feel as partners we can be able to work together. And in Uganda, our partners use the scope insight assessment tools as well as the POSA tool, which is being used by TechnoServe, one of our founding members. And so members are trying to see how these 2 tools can be integrated in our daily tools that we use during support activities. And we're also trying to get other partners on board, especially government, through the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. And we trust that if we can be able to bring these partners, the government on board, then we can really agree and they can support us in having common tools to use while supporting the farm organizations. We have also succeeded in getting our members starting to work together on joint projects, and partners are already working on designs on proposals. We've got Ricolto and ICRA working together on some proposals. We also got TechnoServe and ICRA again working on some collaborative work together. All this is because these members have come to learn each other, trust each other, and understand that they're not competitors, but probably they complement each other, and so there is need for closer collaboration so that we can be able to achieve the goals that we all have. TechnoServe and ICRA are also working on a business development service provision framework, and also this is a result of our collaboration through the network that we have in Uganda. So it is this and much more that we feel that members the partners who work with the support farm organizations can achieve, and then help to take the farm organizations to a better level. Another area of collaboration is to do with the bankability, and here members have discussed through the meetings that we have held here on the various approaches that they are employing to enable the farm organizations access financing which they need in their work. And the partners have been able to share and we are trying to compare and see which approaches have been more successful and which approaches need a little bit of troubleshooting here and there. What can we learn from our peers, from our fellow members, as we try to support this. And in doing this, we have also brought other partners on board. We have Andy, we have Achille Africa, and we have also invited the FCU to come and participate in our meetings, and they have given us what they look at, what areas they look at before they can finance a farm organization. And so we feel that these partners can benefit from these collaborations if players, actors like the financiers, like I just mentioned, can be able to find value, can be able to see the relevance of the networks, and then we can be able to support our organizations better. We are also, as partners, we are also collaborating on how we can be able to fit into the village agent model, how we can be able to integrate it into our daily activities, so that the model does not distort what we're already doing on the ground. We're trying to see how we can be able to make adjustments in our models, see how the village agent model can be able to, we're trying to tweak it here and there to ensure that we fit it, because MAIF has adopted it. And so we feel that we also have to find a way of understanding it better, of understanding how we can be able to modify our approaches to fit it in, so that we can be able to move along and support our farm organizations better. So that is one of the areas, some of the areas where the partners in Uganda are trying to work together. But all in all, the key purpose is to ensure that we have common areas of collaborating, which are looking at adoption of members adopting common tools, common approaches, defining farm organizations using a close or similar scale, so that we don't waste resources, we don't waste time, and also we are more effective, efficient in deployment of the resources that the partners have. Because at the end of the day, all of us have a common agenda, a common goal, and that goal is to support the professionalism that is going to help the members access services from the farm organizations. But if we are using this integrated kind of tools and approaches, we are ourselves are behaving like competitors, then we can't achieve this. And also other actors whom we want to support the farm organizations are not going to be able to come on board and support them. And so all of us become losers. So that is part of the benefit that the local networks are bringing to the partners of AMEA, and we feel it is going to be it's an approach that is going to help us get the farm organizations to professionalize. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Sabrina to take us through the international workshop agreement at this point.
Great, thank you, Harrison, and thanks everyone for joining. So Harrison and Mark have laid out very nicely some of the real challenges that farmer organizations experience and just how fragmented the efforts to support them can be. Now I'm going to go into a bit more depth about the global guidelines that AMEA has been working on. As Mark mentioned, the guidelines, also known as IWA 29, are a cornerstone of the AMEA framework. Now, some of you might be asking, what the heck is an IWA? An IWA is an international workshop agreement. It's a type of ISO deliverable, ISO being the International Organization for Standardization. Some of you might be familiar with them for things like the ISO 9000 standards for quality management systems, or the ISO 22000 standards for food safety management. In fact, ISO handles standards for almost anything. Unlike a standard, however, IWAs are developed outside of the normal ISO committee system, so they allow for broader, more direct stakeholder participation. And this helps to ensure that the agreement is transparent, commonly understood, grounded in the realities of the sector, and hopefully more credible. An IWA also allows for a more immediate response to market requirements, particularly where ISO doesn't have a lot of expertise itself. And it helps test the waters for and inform the development of future standards. And these are some of the reasons why we chose this mechanism. IWAs are valid for 3 years, at which point they can be converted into another type of deliverable, such as a regular ISO standard, or withdrawn or extended for a maximum of another 3 years. So that brings us to IWA 29, the Professional Farmer Organization Guidelines. So focusing on professionalism and saying we want to increase professionalism is one thing, but do we all understand this in the same way and to mean the same thing? As said earlier, AMEA believes that aligning the understanding and expectation amongst all the different stakeholders of what a professional farmer organization is and what it looks like could support better stakeholder alignment, collaboration and linkages, efficiency of implementation, and continuous improvement. IWA 29 provides the basis for this common language for all agricultural sector stakeholders, and that includes the whole system: farmer organizations, members, suppliers, buyers, service providers, investors or lenders, government, NGOs, and so on. It describes the key characteristics across 6 core capacity areas, which are shown here, that are needed by farmer organizations to demonstrate a strong level of professionalism. Responding to the challenges laid out by Mark and described on the ground by Harrison, the guidelines strive to be universal, and they are focused on what's needed to meet the organization's objectives rather than being very prescriptive or overly specific as to the how or how much, what it specifically looks like. So, in fact, this is one of the key differences between the types of standards and certifications that some of you might be familiar with, such as Global GAP, UTS, or maybe Fair Trade, and the IWA. The IWA is not intended to be a pass-fail. It's not intended to serve only specific markets or specific types of organizations, farm organizations. We worked hard throughout the process to ensure the guidelines would be broad enough to apply across a wide range of farmer organization types, sizes, geographies, and products, because our focus really is on committing to a common language and to a common understanding that can help support these systemic improvements that we've been talking about. And as Mark mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, stop reinventing the wheel by trying to be overly innovative or overly branded or unique. So the guidelines therefore focus on things like increasing understanding and confidence among actors, aligning vision and interventions, encouraging active engagement, and so on. They're not intended to intervene in the regulation of organizations or to replace or compete with principles for cooperatives or with certification regimes, or to address every capacity or aspect of professionalism that might be important to a specific market or customer, nor to imply the need for uniformity. So how was this thing developed? AMEA started the initiative to develop a globally accepted guideline starting back in March of 2017, and an AMEA working group was formed to take the global guideline forward. The group drafted the original proposal and developed the guidelines over a period of about 2 years, incorporating input from AMEA members and their partners, consultants, and a wide range of stakeholders. To maximize stakeholder engagement and participation, the AMEA network led a strong outreach campaign to bring stakeholders to the table. This included 8 workshops in the world, including in Addis Ababa, Abidjan, Bangkok, Kampala, Lima, London, Tegucigalpa, and in Washington, D.C. Over 250 people took part in those workshops. In addition, all 160 ISO member bodies were also engaged. Stakeholders worldwide registered online to review and comment on the guidelines proposal. This virtual process culminated in an in-person 2-day international workshop agreement meeting in the Netherlands in November of 2018. Any organization, company, or individual was allowed to comment or to attend as long as they registered as a stakeholder. And you didn't have to comment to attend, and you didn't have to attend to comment. So even if you didn't want to come to the actual workshop, you were able to comment as long as you had registered as a stakeholder. And this whole process of commenting, the workshops, and the finalization of the IWA were all facilitated and overseen by an independent chairperson, along with the Dutch National Standards Agency, who was our partner throughout this process. And the final IWA 29 was published in February of 2019. So currently, the AMEA working group is now focused on promoting IWA 29 and supporting AMEA members and other stakeholders to promote and adopt the guidelines through their work. Oh, excuse me. Over the next few years, we'll be collecting and disseminating information on the use of IWA 29 and documenting case studies and learning for future refinements to the guidelines and possible progress towards a full ISO standard. Because as I mentioned, an IWA has this 3-year lifespan and it has to be reviewed. So now what? The guidelines are currently available in English and in French. We are hoping and expecting a Spanish version to be available maybe within about 3 to 6 months. To obtain the complete IWA document from ISO, you do have to purchase it. This is true of almost all ISO documents because ISO copyrights them. However, a detailed overview is available on the AMEA website free of charge, and it's a very detailed overview. That's at www.ameaglobal.org. We would encourage everyone to have a look and use these guidelines as a basis to build towards a common language and vision for professionalism among farmer organizations. Depending on who you are, this might mean looking at the tools you're already using to do farm organization strengthening and making sure that they're aligned with these guidelines, or using the guidelines to inform your selection of tools or partners if you don't already have them. For governments, it might be used to help set national standards, establish guidance, or inform strategies or curricula. For donors, financial institutions, buyers, it can help establish clear expectations for investment or to direct capacity building efforts, as well as to inform strategies. And if you're a farmer organization or a union of farmer organizations, you might use it to set expectations for your organization's members and customers, or to advocate to government, donors, or business development service providers. So going back to Harrison's examples, UCA can use this as a communication and advocacy tool to better align the different capacity building approaches so its members don't end up developing 4 different business plans or undergoing multiple and different capacity assessments each year, but not being able to compare the results or meaningfully track the progress just to cater to the different NGOs and donors that they work with. So if you do end up using the guidelines, please do let us know. As I mentioned, we are looking to capture lessons and feed them into the review of the IWA in a couple of years. So I'll now hand you back over to Mark, who's just going to wrap things up for us.
Okay, thank you very much to Harrison and Sabrina. Just to summarize what you've heard, I mean, we're aiming at building market-based systems. It's a public-private sector system, and we all have to collaborate to establish a system that can accelerate the professionalization of farmer organizations, which we know is at quite a low base at the moment. The AMEA framework was developed to guide the development of those systems at country level. So that's where we're taking it now through the networks, and we expect to expand those local networks next year and the year after. Those local networks will be the vehicle to drive this. It's not a top-down initiative. And I should make the point that we're not a project. We are self-financed to a large extent, and it's member-driven. So this isn't just a 3-year project that disappears. So that's why I referred to a 10-year or longer time frame. And therefore we can adjust and adapt based on the context and look for opportunities and challenges and respond quickly. Just as a last point, I know we're talking to market systems experts, and I would just say for any type of MSD project, I think the acceleration of farmer organization development is vital. If you're aiming at inclusive agricultural development, clearly, so there's plenty of literature around that shows that collective action is required in one form or another. So it could be a cooperative, it could be a farm organization, it could be something else, but it's got to be collective action, and we've got to professionalize the organizations that respond to that need. Okay, well, thank you very much. Hopefully we've got plenty of time to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mark. That's excellent. I mean, thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Harrison. Very, very interesting presentation. I'm going to go straight into questions because we've got a couple, and perhaps there's a really very clearly articulated one that came through from John Tettleborough just now, and he asks, from your experience, are there particular management or governance arrangements which make it easier to meet the IWA standard, or conversely, which make it more difficult?
Sabrina, do you want to take that?
Sure, I can have a go. So, I mean, I think if you asked a particular practitioner, or if you were in a room with all of the AMEA members and you asked them individually, they could all give examples of what they think are the specific management or governance arrangements that they think are the most professional or lead to the best results. But I think this actually points to one of the challenges and one of the lines we tried to walk in developing the IWA was we really needed it to be this global common language. So it didn't get into the standard in terms of the standard, meeting the standard. It really didn't get into specific arrangements in management or governance. It really focused on things like, is your governance system accountable and transparent, and is it serving the goals of the organization and the membership? And the same with the management. Is the management, right-sized for the organization? Not does it have this position and that position, and does it have this hierarchy or this structure, but is it serving the needs of the members in the organization? So we tried to really go up a few thousand feet or a few 10,000s of feet in order to get that global consensus that we were looking for with the guideline. So it was definitely a balance. And like I said, I think that the individual practitioner response will almost definitely give you, everybody has their opinion about what works best in any given specific context, but in order to be applicable across countries, across products, across organization size and level of maturity, we didn't keep it quite broad, so it didn't get into real specific arrangements.
Yeah, I mean, just to add onto that, I mean, I think with the toolkit as well, I mean, the selection of the tools, they are tools that have been used in various contexts, both in terms of countries, but also crop sectors. And I think the assessment tools, certainly, they have a strong focus on governance and management, but particularly I'd say the training and curricula. It's not just about training, it's about coaching, and it's very modular. It's like all the tools that are in that toolkit, so you can adapt it based on the context. And they all anticipate that you're going to do some basic training for sure, which will tell people about what is good governance, good management. But in the end, a lot of it comes down to the coaching, doesn't it? And trying to find a way through a governance or management challenge, which Harrison's got a lot of experience on those sort of things, particularly in Uganda. So I don't know if he wants to say anything.
I think there's not much, but also like you explained, like Mark explained, the whole purpose of partners coming together is to help them look at agree on guidelines, and then after understanding the guidelines that we need to follow as partners supporting the farm organizations, then we will be able to make adjustments to our tools, to our approaches, to ensure that now we are all supporting the farm organizations to reach out a certain target which we have agreed on. So to me, I think that is the most important bit, that we're now aiming at reaching a common target, and that means that we have to somehow make adjustments to our tools and approaches to ensure that we reach that common target. And those tools and approaches is what the partners are trying to agree on at the moment under the AMEA frameworks. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Harrison. Mark. So look, if you don't mind being a little bit controversial, there's a couple of people asked questions about the sort of the focus on cooperatives as a structure. So this is not in the chat box today, but in previous submissions that we received. Christian Aid and also IFDC both kind of noted the problems related to political interference in the cooperative movement, and the fact that as a result there aren't a lot of strong cooperatives despite repeated efforts to sort of train and support them. And I'm wondering whether anyone of you would like to sort of talk to that challenge particularly.
Well, let me have a go very quickly first, and then maybe either Harrison or Sabrina can add, because I mean, for a start, we talk about professionalising farmer organisations, so it's not focused solely on cooperative development. And as I said, the local networks have to decide which strategy to employ based on the context. If the context is very difficult to operate in and very difficult to promote cooperatives, I think we would have to recognise that. But even where it's not ideal, and I say Uganda still has some ways to go, and Harrison can comment on this. I think we see a huge advantage if we all start talking the same language about what it means to professionalise to those cooperatives who are not performing right now. And if we get the government, the private sector, and ourselves all talking the same language, then I think we will make a lot of progress. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't address the immediate challenge of many market development programs who want to find cooperatives to work with, and they don't find that many, do they? So maybe Harrison or Sabrina want to add.
Just to re-emphasize, at the moment, the challenge is that, now, first of all, cooperatives are among the farm organizations that we are targeting, and us as Uganda Cooperative Alliance, that's why we are so interested, because the challenge we've been facing with many cooperatives that we work with is that partners come from all over the world, and they bring all their various approaches that they have used in other parts of the world, and they think they're going to work in here. They come with tools, and they think they're going to work in here. So in the end, you find that a cooperative, which is, for example, supported by 2 or 3 partners, is using 3 approaches, different approaches, but to just reach the same target, and so in the end, the cooperative is totally confused. So, like Mark said, under the local network, the AMEA framework, we finally have a chance that these partners coming together and agreeing on approaches, on tools. We're going to be able to help these cooperatives overcome the challenges that they face, not only in governance, but in all areas of business access, of market access, financial services access. I mean, because now the language is going to be similar. The partners are going to be supporting each other as they work towards supporting this farm organization. So it's an opportunity, and we've trust that a couple of years down the road, we're going to see cooperatives really are now following kind of similar approaches because the partners that work with them are also following similar approaches, and the tools are more similar, and they're really focused on achieving attainment of a certain goal, which is kind of universal. So this is what AMEA is bringing on board.
I think the only thing I'd just add there is I think another hope that we have is that the IWA could also be used to do some advocacy with government and with other kinds of stakeholders to ideally to kind of help reduce some of that that interference in or over engagement in managing cooperatives from government.
Okay, thank you, guys. That's a very comprehensive response to that question. We had a question earlier from someone who's in the room, that Benant Solomon, who asked us, and this is a very kind of market systems development kind of question, really. How do you analyse the incentives of the various actors and stakeholders, including members of farmer organisations, and frame the right respective offers? So, in other words, to put it from the perspective of MSD projects, where we're looking at how to support farmer organisations of the system, we're always interested to try and understand the best way to kind of get at the genuine incentives and motives of different actors, and how we can work and align those incentives with our sort of more public developmental objectives. And I'm wondering, is there any experience from AMEA as a network around the best way to understand the incentives of actors? Is this something that's kind of incorporated in the tools that you mentioned, for example, Harrison?
I mean, shall I take that one? I know it's a challenging one. I mean, if I look at the work that has been done on the business development services sector, and particularly in reference to professionalising farmer organisations, it just feels like there's been lots and lots of projects, but very little work on the system itself. Uganda is a perfect example where Technoserve and ICRA are working together to sort of first establish what a BDS framework would look like in Uganda, because and that's basically starting from, as you would say, sort of looking at the various actors out there, the incentives, their capacities as well to adapt and change, and it's at a very basic level. So I see the AMEA local networks working through this problem country by country, and if Uganda's anything to go by, then we're starting from quite a low base. But maybe some of your members, the Beam Exchange members, have got already got experience of this, which they can share as well later. Harrison or Sabrina?
I mean, I think this is a really interesting question. I think it's something that a lot of the AMEA members are working on in their own work, but I don't think it's something yet that we've been working on a lot together. So I mean, to me, it kind of piqued my interest. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That could be something that we could be thinking about for the future. Potential areas of collaboration is thinking about some of these more systems analysis type tools and approaches. Right now, the toolkit a lot of it is focused on assessment tools and training and coaching tools and curricula. And AMEA is relatively new. I mean, we've really been going only for a couple of years as a full network, so we've kind of been consolidating, getting some of the basic building blocks in place. But as we look forward and we acknowledge this need for a more systemic approach, not just like at the high level of the AMEA network, but also in the work that each of us are doing on the ground. I think that's an interesting potential area for a future collaboration press.
Okay, we have a few minutes left, Mark. I'm just trying to have a quick look through the other questions that came up. There was yes. I mean, you've kind of covered the basis so well. I'm not sure what to ask you. I mean, without getting into some much broader questions.
Yeah, I mean, all I could say is, that we haven't. All that I could say that we haven't covered really is, well, what does it mean to be an AMEA member, which people might want to ask, and it's this commitment to work on, improving our own approaches. So people become members because they want to improve their own institutional approaches to professionalizing farmer organizations, but they also want to share learning as well, and share tools. And being an AMEA member means that you're committed to that sort of sharing, pre-competitive sharing, let's put it that way, and also to enabling learning and improvement to happen with the view to that systems development. So as Sabrina says, the systems bit, it's in there, it has to be, but it takes time for us to work through that, particularly with local networks that are only about a year old. But being an AMEA member does mean that you will also be able to access all those tools, which it's free of charge to access them. Obviously, it's not free of charge to actually do trainers of trainers and things like that. You have to build those into projects. But what we're really trying to encourage is that more people use these tools, and then we'll generate much better learning loops around them, and also encourage new members to come in with tools that they think are the best and have worked in many countries across many crop sectors, and we build from there. So hopefully we'll get one or two of your Beam Exchange members that are interested.
I'm sure you will. I hope you do, Mark. It sounds very very constructive. I've just pegged your website address there, ameaglobal.org, where I guess as Sabrina mentioned, the IWA 29 guidelines are available. And we would also like to draw attention to the online survey that we do at the end of each of these seminars, where people can express any comments they have about how the seminar went, and the link for that has just been placed in the chat box. So I would encourage all of you, please just have a quick click on that link and take a minute and give us your feedback. And I guess through the AMEA Global website, people here can reach you, Mark, for any questions you have about the IWA 29 standard and how it might be used.
Yeah, sure. I'll just put my email in as well, so people can contact me directly.
That's great. Well, as I say, it's been a very interesting webinar, Mark. Thank you, Harrison. Thank you, Sabrina.